So we've been having to use the tractor to finish mower on the back, not fun.
We run into stuff.
Yes. I break, I mow stuff down with finish mower.
Everybody sprays, she's deadly.
We are live.
Okay.
Welcome to the June 9th, Jefferson County, Indiana County Council meeting. Will you please rise and say pledge of allegiance? Please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone. Our first order of business have all the council members had an opportunity to read through our minutes from the May 12th and May 19th meeting? And if you have, do you agree with it, or do we need to make any additionals or any corrections?
I saw no corrections to be made.
I'd like to entertain a motion to accept those minutes as reported. So moved. Got a second?
Go ahead.
All in favor? All opposed?
Excuse me. Are those minutes posted somewhere? Cause those are probably for
Yes.
the meetings.
Yes.
I didn't read.
They will
Will
be,
be
once they're a final copy, according to the Indiana Public Access Council, she recognizes that the final copy is the copy that should be posted on our website.
And it'll be on the
It will
city of
be-
Madison.
No, it's Jefferson County.
Okay.
It'll be on the council.
Right, and all right, so we get
Thank
points to everybody to review those minutes. And B, there's no corrections made, then that's when they're released.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
The next order of business, Laura,
On here.
we're gonna have a transfer, your request on a transfer.
Good evening, everyone. So, the first thing that I have for this evening is I am requesting that we transfer funds from our jail part-time budget into a full-time control spot. In the past couple of years, we've operated with just 3 control officers, and we'd like to move them to the same shift as all the rest of the jail staff, which requires us to have 4 instead of 3. And we also thought we would be able to fill those weekend vacancies with some part-time employment, and we have been unable to do that in the 2 years that I have attempted. Probably because we don't pay as much as most of our part-time counterparts throughout the county. So I am requesting that we transfer $30,724.65 from the part-time into a full-time control officer position. That does cover all the cost of benefits and salary for the year for that position.
I did go ahead and break those up a little bit so that it went into perf and where it was needed, so.
I appreciate the information that was sent to us.
So this isn't any additional money, this is taking from a fund we've already got budgeted, right?
Yes.
We've already got. Okay.
And it's not completely wiping that budget. I do have one employee that does work out of that budget, but it is taking it pretty much to cover that entire spot.
Okay,
What is the balance in that?
I don't know the
Okay.
balance right off from. I can look.
And that one was 32,924
Yeah.
or 974.
I just been wondering how close we were making it.
You may have just enough time as far as hopefully getting that billed prior to budget submissions to kind of see if we indeed need to maintain that status quo for 2027 and keep that at 4 full-time, which would hopefully lessen the part-time ask.
That would be the overall goal. If we fill that spot, obviously, we haven't been able to fill that control void, which was what the part-time was allocated for to begin with. And we just can't get anyone to fill that.
So if we have anybody part-time this year?
We have one. We've had one pretty much consistently for the last couple of years, and they just clean at
Okay,
the
well,
facility.
that's different though.
Right.
Okay.
cents. That's for the part-time. And then an extra, 5,340. And then money for health insurance, 1,735, and, for PERF, $3,605, right? That's correct, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we're gonna be voting on, and it's not more money, it's just reallocating,
Yes,
That money
and it's
to a
creating
full-time.
a full-time spot.
creating a full-time spot,
Yes.
okay? Okay. I would like to entertain a motion to go ahead and,
I'll make the
Make
motion
that
to,
transfer.
for the 30,724.65 for the control officer position for the year of 2026.
and that is from, 1,000.12, 515.00000.0380, and also 1,000.12, 515.00000.030 to the amount of 5,340. And from line item 1,000.12600.00000.0068 to the amount of 1,735.
Totals to $32,459.65.
Yeah. So what was that total again, Ray?
$32,459.65.
Okay. So we've got a motion on that. Do we want to second that?
I'll second that.
On that. All in favor of that transfer?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
They both.
Thank you, Laura.
And then the only other thing I have is just, I have, appropriations from funds for Flock, the grant funds, for the juvenile outreach program that we've created, and as well as the sheriff's cars.
They were all discussed at the last meeting. Ben went over those. The 100,000 or the $5,000 was for the Flock contract that's already been paid, but the prosecutor's repaying the fund. The sheriff's cars, which was reimbursement due to return payment on a car and an insurance check. And then the other was the additional for $1,920 for the juvenile outreach program.
And all three of those I know are on, do you wanna hold on?
Do you wanna hold on till
this?
the-
We can. We'll hold off till the end to get to the
Yeah.
initials and transfer.
Did anybody have any questions about any of those?
That one was for 80, wasn't it? All three of those together, the 80,147
That was the sheriff car. And
sheriff car insurance.
the juvenile, 1,920.
Outreach grant, okay. Thanks, Laura. Does anybody else have anything?
Actually, Laura, can I ask real quick? I did not, you talked about it, I apologize, because I did not take notes. Remind me the grant for the juvenile outreach, I don't think Ben gave us details
He
in
did.
that last month. What will that entail? Is there an officer that may do some work in the school?
So ideally, the very short version of this is we would like to create a juvenile program to help the at-risk youth. So those status offense youth, like runaways, things like that, that are starting down a negative path. We'd like to get them involved with an officer at that school level. Whether it's a program, typically it would look like children teaching other children. So we teach them a skill, they teach a group of people a skill. And we would like to start that in the school with the SROs. It will also fund like our junior deputy days and things like that that we do with these groups of kids. That we've currently been funding ourselves.
We're school starting back in August, May, by the end of the year, we're gonna be able to hear a little more about that.
Well, my
As well.
grant info is due by October, so we're already in the process of working what that looks like. But, it is a program that I worked very exclusively in California. It is a program that I think works really well with kids, and it gets them involved earlier with law enforcement instead of waiting until we actually have some negative impact. I'd like to get to kids in a positive environment and then put them on a better path. And we've been talking about this with the JDAI meetings that we've been going to all year, juvenile probation and awning. These are all conversations we've been having and getting that law enforcement diversion type program put into place. This county's never had it, and it's a very difficult thing to start, but it's worth starting. So this little tiny fund should hopefully open that door.
It sounds great.
Thank you, Laura.
You're very welcome.
All right, Ms. Parker. Good evening.
Want to take a few minutes, I guess, to update you all on, how it's going with the new animal shelter project for the building. Happy to report that everything is moving in the right direction. Ivy Tech is, continuing through the necessary steps to deed the property to the county. We also hired, Patriot Engineering to complete a geotechnical soil report. They actually began collecting the samples this morning, so that's exciting. Once those results are in, it will provide the architect, he will be able to calculate the foundation requirements for the new building. On the funding side, all our required information for the READY grant has been submitted, and our application is currently in a pre-commitment review stage. But the IEDC has continued to reassure us that it's going to be gifted to us or by the end of June.
So this year, right?
This year.
month,
Or this
Yeah,
month.
this month, yeah.
The end of this month. We got the survey on the land completed a little over a week ago. According to our architect, Bill Carr, he says the architectural, I can't speak.
That's hard word.
Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing drawings are almost done. Once the boring samples are complete, the structural engineer portion can be finalized. The civil engineering also began last week after the survey, so that's getting close to being completed too. So we're on the right path. We're just a little bit slower than what I was hoping for, but we're on the right path. Financially, we're still making great progress. We started out in our building fund having $129,339 in there. And then through pledges and donations so far, we've received $391,227, which makes that account be close to $520,566. With the $1.6 million from the READY grant, we're looking at about $2.12 million.
That's my good question.
Is going to be in our hand.
Mhm.
And then once we get into the bidding process, we'll have a much clearer picture of like what it's actually going to cost us. We're just getting an estimate now. And at that point, we'll be working closely with the commissioners to try to fill whatever funding gap. I've got a couple of grants that we'll start looking into here soon. That as soon as they open, well, one's open, just gotta get it submitted, and another one that'll open in August, and hopefully, some of that will help with the gap if there's any. I just want, to recognize our community too. The support we have received through the donations, the pledges, encouragements, advocacy of the new shelter has just been overwhelming, and it just melts my heart to know that. It's
gonna get done.
I couldn't do it without your all's support, without the commissioners, Brian Amick, wherever he is. He has been like total asset to me. I'm just humbled by everything, that we're finally getting there.
Yeah, Tricia, is that grant, do you think that is pretty much guaranteed we'll get that amount, or do you think it could be less, Bobby?
Or Brian,
Yeah,
I'll grab Brian real quick. He's in the other room.
yeah, oh, it's okay, it's okay. Have you had good feedback
Yeah,
from
I've
the,
had good, yeah, pretty good feedback from Brian. Brian not said anything. Are we pretty sure we're gonna get the 1.6 in the grant? Are you feeling?
This is IEDC we're talking.
yes, I know,
There's nothing that we've heard, that indicates no. It's just that the IEDC has to do their review,
right,
Ernst & Young has to do their compliance review, and then the money gets obligated. We're still trying to figure out what that actually means. At some point, though, there'll be a, sub-grant recipient agreement that we'll go through, and at that
Okay.
point, we'll have the money. But everything looks like it's on track.
okay, good.
I talked to, Andrea with RDA today. She's talking to the IDC folks every day and just asked her to any red flags or anything that she was saying. She's like, no.
That's what I was wondering,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
See what I
everything's.
mean? I couldn't do it without him.
I know,
You've got,
he's great,
yeah, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I think so.
okay, all right,
Yeah, just.
Tricia, I just want to say that I really appreciate what you've done too. I don't think people give you enough credit. You had to go up there and sit in front of that board and.
Oh, that was mainly Ivy Tech and Mr. Little here that did that. so
Yeah,
I
but
just-
you had some question and answers thrown at you. You had some questions lobbed at you too, didn't you? So. It's a pretty good team effort.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and I so appreciate Ivy Tech because I think that was the boost that we needed, them coming
Oh,
in.
yes.
And the day I met, Dr. Newcomb with Ivy Tech, when she walked over there and she's like, what can I do for you? It's just been a game changer, like all us parts.
Wonderful.
Yeah, shelter's doing pretty good, so. Do y'all have any other questions or anything?
thanks for the update.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
You're
Tricia.
welcome.
Let's see. Heather?
So, Sarah and I has been working on making sure that we have a certificate of appointment for all board members. And there was a position at the Jefferson County Park Board that needs to be reappointed. This is for an appointment, and it will last through December 31, 2028. And Nick Ellis has been recommended and he wants to serve on that.
Does anybody have any comment about that? Anybody think about it?
He's been on that board for, well,
He's been serving on that position for a long time. We just did not reappoint him the last time it was missed.
So I'd like to entertain him.
So is that a 4-year appointment, or is it a 2? Or, cause we would be in the middle. of
Right, I
this.
think he's in the middle and
Yeah.
this cleans up all of the previous.
Okay, so,
Previous to.
okay,
years.
so it's a 4-year.
Yeah.
So we'll be revisiting this in 2 years.
The end of 28,
At
yes.
the end of 28.
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Nicholas to, this is the county parks board, not the city, parks board. And with the term expiring December 31st of 2028.
Get a second on that?
I'll second. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign?
Do you want me to go through the transfers?
Sure.
Okay, so, we have a transfer that was submitted to us by Tabitha Evelyn. I sent you guys all the information on that. She is basically asking, to transfer funds from office supplies, equipment, and rebinding of records to part-time help. She's gonna need some additional support so that the office does not feel a gap, I guess. Her term is coming to an end, so they're doing more cross-training.
This is replacing the part-time person that just recently left.
Right, so,
Basically,
yes, that employee had left and then they're just cross-training
okay.
since they have a shortage.
I would motion to approve these transfers from office supplies to part-time from equipment and rebinding of records for the clerk's office to supplement and hire that part-time person.
Get a second?
Prior to a potential second, I had looked, I can't find
It was not,
the binding of records line item.
And this 1119. I can't get in that IP, just drop my VPN, I guess.
So that is not, I mean, obviously her office supplies, and so that's not in county general.
No, it's in 1119, clerk perpetual.
Or the perpetual, thank you.
Okay.
That's why.
I knew it was somewhere.
Yeah, it's in, it's not in county general, it's in perpetual.
Office
And
supplies is still coming from the 2130.
yeah, all of it is coming from the perpetual fund, and it would be creating that part-time line in that fund.
Yeah.
Because they typically do not pay part-time out of that.
Yes, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Get a second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
I,
All opposed?
Okay, the next thing is, Dave Sutter has submitted a transfer. He has a insurance check. They're looking for a replacement car. Their car, for their special investigator was in a collision with a deer. And the insurance check is not going to be enough to pay for a replacement vehicle, but, they have delayed filling the drug prosecutor line, and he does have an additional $20,000 in that line that he would like to transfer to a vehicle purchase line to use the insurance reimbursement with purchase.
I'd like to entertain a motion for that transfer. So moved. Second,
Say.
all in favor?
I,
All opposed?
Okay, and then that takes us to our additionals. Most of these were discussed at last meeting. The first one is for public safety, and it's 1170-302-450000.0000. This is for an even distribution to fire departments, county fire departments, to be used for radio equipment.
I'll motion to, approve that 120 or 100.
100.
Yes, I was thinking it was 125 for some reason.
Hold up just for a second.
Uh-huh.
Now that was just so every vehicle could have like a centralized unit. That's not for the portable, right?
That, we're looking at getting the portables, because they've already got this centralized,
Okay,
like with our new engine, it would go, it's a new engine.
okay.
Put a new radio in it, there'd be one radio in that too. That's what we eventually want to get, everybody's having one radio in their truck. That's a bill base of it.
Okay. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay, our next is for the sheriff's department for $5,000. The sheriff's department pays the entire flock contract, and then the prosecutor's office is now reimbursing their $5,000 share.
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
I can second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay, the next is for 1170 as well, which is public safety. It will go into sheriff cars. The amount is $80,147.15, and this is the amount of insurance checks due to wrecks and a reimbursement from a return payment on a car.
I motion to approve.
Say.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm gonna hold off on the next one.
Okay. You-
And
Mr.
then-
Mr. Bramer here.
He is,
Okay.
I'll go ahead and do
Okay,
the
we'll wait
last
for the
two.
Okay.
So the next is road repair out of casino revenue in the amount of $300,000. Jason explained that at the last meeting.
I'll make the motion to use that 300,000 for road repairs.
I'll second. Go ahead. Doesn't matter here if you do.
All in favor? All opposed?
And the final item that was discussed tonight was, 49,000, well, a fund 4926, which is a new local grant. It's Sheriff Juvenile Outreach Grant in the amount of $1,920 that Laura discussed.
Like to entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve the $1,920 for the juvenile program.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then the last two items I will do after Mr.
Okay.
Braden. One.
Ready for Mr. Brennan?
Is Andrew's next,
Oh, okay.
and then we'll
Andrew
do
Lang.
David.
Okay.
Thank you. We can get, Spramer up here, going to go and if that,
No, you're next, you're next.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate the time. I'm not gonna ask you for anything, not requesting anything. This is purely information. Actually, I will ask something. If you have questions, just let me know and I'll try to answer them now or, later. Mr. Bramer, Commissioner Bramer asked me to come, give you a little presentation, a little conversation here. Heather and I and he met, I think it was in April. And we went through some, financial information that I put together. But I'll take a step back. I'm Andrew Lamb, with Stifel Nicholson Company. I'm a CPA and I primarily practice relates to, local government taxes and accounting. And, I first got acquainted with the county, several years ago when we did the jail project. And worked with the county to establish the local income tax rates to be able to pay for the project. And then ultimately finance the project and I hope it's going well so far. But I've been, around kind of ever since. I don't come to these meetings very often. But I did meet with Heather and David and I'm kind of immersed constantly in everything local government and local government finance and taxation. And so as you all probably are aware to some degree or another, we've had some major legislative changes over the last year or so. The first one being Senate Enrolled Act 1 that is dramatically changing local government taxes and assessed values and local income taxes that'll be rolling out over the next several years. There were some additional changes at the legislature this year that have juggled some things around as far as delaying the changes for local income taxes, also creating a few things that we'll talk about here momentarily. So I'll just log on. The first thing that I want to talk about is in this legislative session, the legislature adopted HEA 1210. And that, amongst other things that it did, it created a task force, the Municipal Unit Strategic Task Force, or MUST. And I'll use as many acronyms as possible so I don't have to keep repeating myself. But ultimately, what the MUST will do, it's completely optional. Each county is responsible for convening it and kind of shepherding this. It's completely optional though. So prior to October 1st, if the county so desires, the county council would appoint one county council member and the county auditor, and they would convene a council of the only the other cities or towns in the county. And you would all convene and you would make some determinations or not make any determinations about the local income tax structure for the county beginning in 2029. It was originally slated to take place in 2028, and you would have had to make a decision by like Q3 of 27. They pushed that back, so now the new income taxes will go into effect in 2029, but you'll have to make your determinations of how it's going to go down in 2028. Well, by October 1st, if you would like to convene the MUST committee or council, what is on the table basically is the new income tax situation and whether you would like to have uniform county rates for all county services, including local income taxes that are allowed to be collected by the cities and towns, non-municipal taxing districts and units, and everything in between, including EMS and fire. So the county will now control its own destiny. It previously did, but the county can control
the local income taxes to operate the county general fund. It also will have jurisdiction in controlling any countywide taxes for EMS and fire. It will also have jurisdiction over municipalities that don't meet certain criteria for being able to control their own local income taxes, and that's based on population. And then for other cities and towns that exceed that certain population threshold, they can implement their own local income taxes, but it's only on the geographical boundaries for those cities and towns. And I'll just say Madison, for instance. So under the new regime, Madison will be able to implement its own local income tax up to 1.2%, but it's only taxed on their geographical boundaries and people that live in that area. Currently, local income taxes are taxed at a uniform rate throughout the entire county, and each unit of government, if they receive anything, they are allocated a portion of those local income taxes based upon some kind of arcane formulas. Well, we're going away with that to some degree. And so those municipalities are allowed to do their own thing as far as local income taxes. This council will meet, and then if this council were to make a unanimous decision amongst all the parties, then you can continue to do countywide local income taxes. But what you're meeting for is to determine the allocation method of who gets what and in what amounts. Barring a unanimous decision, then it will revert back to the new legislation. And there are formulas for how these things work, whether it be the non-municipal units, like solid waste management districts, libraries, and other types of units that may qualify. I don't believe you have any fire protection districts or fire territories here, so that would be controlled at the township level. And there are provisions in the bill that account for that. But the county will have a lot of the county council in particular will have a lot of influence over how the new local income taxes are set up and at what rates. And so what we did in April was kind of look at the current framework for the local income taxes. And basically you look at population estimates and the historical tax base, and the tax base for local income taxes is like everyone that files taxes in the county will file, some tax return with the state. And that will determine the total taxable assessed value of everybody's income in the county. Well, if you're doing uniform tax rates across the entire county, then it's pretty easy to do those calculations. But now we're going to mix it up where you have certain pockets in the county that may be able to do their own income tax rate. Currently, the data doesn't even exist to be able to do those calculations. We should have that soon. Yeah, I would expect at any time that the Department of Revenue will be communicating with other state agencies to allow us then to say, okay, well, if Hanover or if Madison wanted to do their own local income taxes and relieve the county of doing that, then they could generate up to X dollars in local income taxes. And my baseline here is basically starting at, well, how much are you receiving now? And at what rates would you need to implement to reproduce the current amount of income taxes that you're generating? And so by and large across the state, most county units are going to be doing okay from this. You have a lot of flexibility. Your tax base isn't changing at all from what it's been historically because it's still the total county. Where we see issues arising across the state are some of the municipalities within the counties that may not be getting the same amount of revenues that they historically were, but they're still going to have the same operating costs to fund their police and everything else that the local city would do. And so the meeting, this discussion here and the meeting that we had previously was to say, there's a lot of information about there. Everybody has an opinion, but let's just hone into Jefferson County a little bit. Let's use the information that we do have available and the formulas that are available. And let's give a little reassurance to Heather and the commissioners and folks that it's going to be okay. There will be questions as to how things are done, what the deadlines are, what options you have. But as you continue to proceed forward and we get more guidance from the Department of Local Government Finance and some of the other input from the Department of Revenue, you'll be able to better, assess what your options are and kind of back into what a replacement rate would need to be for the county. Or if you want to do countywide EMS or fire tax rates that you currently don't have. It's kind of buried within your current local income tax structure, or maybe you're paying with some property taxes, but it's all kind of the same group of money when you get down to it. But also then, how much will you need to raise to continue to pay for the jail bonds? Well, it's gonna be a very similar amount because it's still the total countywide tax base. So I'll be providing additional information to kind of keep you abreast of the situation with respect to the must. The Association of Indiana Counties and other folks have just said, don't, even though the deadline is to convene and make a recommendation, if you have one by October 1st, don't just rush out and do something without knowing the data and having the resources to be able to make an informed decision. And so over the next several weeks to a month, once that information is available, then you can actually begin doing some calculations and saying, well, if you do a countywide rate replacement, that's this. But then you take into consideration, your fire and EMS and some of the townships that they may be, looking for additional funding. And then you look at or the cities and towns in the county will look at their own tax rates, and if it's even enough to be able to raise the revenue replacement. And so once we have the data, then we can kind of make an informed decision. But right now, we're just kind of in a holding pattern. I know budget season's coming up, or you may have already started doing some stuff, but
I have released everyone, well, I guess I opened up everyone's budget projections, so people are starting to key in those numbers. I haven't really looked yet. I think mid-July is when I'm gonna shut that down and start looking at everything to have my DLGF meeting.
yeah, good. So, and right now, local income tax revenues, second major source of revenue for the county operations, at least for the next couple of years, should be steady, and you've been seeing some gains and growth over the years, and I would expect that to continue at least for the next couple of years. But there will be a point where some major changes will happen. Major changes really may not be all that material to the county, but it will certainly affect other communities and folks within the county. And so that's important to remember.
Can I ask you a question, about HEA 1210, when we form the must, if we do by October 1st? Is that would it be the mayor and someone from the council and then the town of Hanover? Would they be involved in that?
Well, do we do the smaller communities that are under 3,200?
Right.
It would be one county council member, the county auditor, and the clerk treasurer, which is the fiscal officer for each city and town. So Madison, Hanover, DuPont, and Brooksburg. And then specifically excluded from the must task force are any fire protection or EMS units, non-municipal civil taxing units, it would be like the library and the solid waste management district. So they're specifically excluded. And again, you have to reach a unanimous decision if you are going to pass that information along. And that information along means you are going to make a recommendation and determination of what you want to do. Then you pass that to the Department of Local Government Finance, and then they gather up all that information and send it to a legislative subcommittee that's reviewing all this information. And the determination has to be made by October 1st if you're going to meet. So you have to convene before then and make a determination to send it to DLGF.
Okay. I have that backwards. Thank you.
But you're fine.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Local median income, the median for income in outside the county and within the city limits. Is that gonna have to, are we gonna have to get the data to keep the tax rate fair for the whole county?
Well, the tax rate, so the county's tax rate, what components you would control, and let me actually just kind of do a brief overview of what's changing. So under the new rules, you will have, actually, and I apologize, I got a lot of stuff here. It's complicated.
Yeah.
I do this every single day and it's complicated.
Sure.
Okay, so right now you have public safety, jail lit, and economic development. Okay, all the jail lit goes to the county and takes care of jail debt service and some operations. And you have public safety, And you get that. Also, some of the other municipalities get some portions of that, of the public safety income tax. Although some of Madison's public safety distribution actually comes back to you to pay for the jail.
41% now.
Yeah, and then economic development, and there are a number of units that get economic development income tax distributions. And so those are going away. And so it will be county general. So that is to fund everything county general, including the jail. So whatever you were receiving previously, it is now gonna be county general. And then fire and EMS, and the maximum tax rate for that is 1.2%.
Mhm.
And that would be countywide. And then you'll have fire and EMS. And if you chose to implement that, then there is a countywide tax rate up to 0.4%. And these amounts that I'm telling you, the tax rates, relatively speaking, in Jefferson County are very low. It's amongst the lowest in the state for local income taxes. And so, you know, it's neither here nor there for the people paying the taxes, but just, I'm telling you, it's some of the lowest in the state. And so these caps that I'm telling you, I don't necessarily expect you to be anywhere near the caps. But the maximum county general is 1.2%. Fire and EMS would be up to 0.4%. And if you were to implement the fire and EMS, it would only go to certain units. And you'd have a little bit of control over who would be able to get that, but it's really units of government that are providing either fire or EMS services. And so, you know, the library is not doing that, schools aren't doing that, and so that's it. And the distribution methodology for that, it's a calculation based upon the population of the service area and the geographical boundaries of that service area. And so it's kind of a complicated formula, but it's just what they made.
So if the median income of people outside the city limits is not as high as within the city limits, that doesn't have an effect on the taxpayer as a whole in the county.
It doesn't have an impact on the totality of the rates. No, it's a
Okay.
uniform rate for everybody for those pieces. Now, if your median household income is higher, the average higher income earner is gonna pay more dollars, but it's gonna be the same rate. So if you make less money, you pay less, but it's the same percentage.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And then, you know, and then if, for instance, the city of Madison were to choose to do their own local income tax rate to pay for their portion that they're receiving currently, then whatever tax rate that would be, up to 1.2%, it would only apply to people that reside within the corporate boundaries of the city of Madison. So everybody across the county gets to pay the county rate, and potentially some of these other rates if the county council were to implement them. But anybody inside of the city would also pay the city municipal rate
And the county rate,
and the county rate.
right, just like the wheel tax. It was
Yes.
stacked.
And so where it used to be uniform across everywhere in the counties, now there is the option that there will be different income tax rates depending on where you live. But it's really only, you're either in a city or town or you're outside of the city or town. And even then, you may not necessarily, it may not be a different rate because of some, like the small units. The small towns, they don't even really have the ability to do their own income tax. They would have to do it at a countywide flat rate, basically.
Okay.
All right. Well, I mean, we're at 1%.
You
I'm not gonna go through it all today,
explain
I
it.
promise. So there's the fire and EMS, there's the, excuse me. There's the non-municipal units, which is up to 0.2%, but not any one unit can get greater than 0.05%. And that would be for libraries, conservancy districts, solid waste management districts, or anything else that either exists now or doesn't exist, but could exist at some point in the future. And then there is the small unit. There's like a municipal services small unit rate where you could levy the tax across the entirety of the county for those units of government that the cities and towns that are too small to do their own. But again, the county council has a lot of discretion with respect to how that's actually done. And more details than I can speak to at this point. I don't memorize that all the time, so I don't have to get into great details, but again, that's part of what this must task force will help you do is lay out all the options. Once we get the data from the state that says, okay, the tax base in the city of Madison is this, and over here in Brooksburg or Hanover, and then all the unincorporated areas are this, that's when we'll really be able to actually do some hard work and figure it out, or at least give you the options. Like right now, we're just kind of shooting in the dark using census data for populations and median household income and things like that. Do I think it's a reasonable estimate? Yeah, it's the best estimate that we actually can get right now because there's no other data available to be able to do any projections. So I just don't know how that will shake out when everything's said and done. That that's the must task force. In addition to the changing local income taxes, we have the changes in property tax deductions. If you own a home here in the county, you might have seen on your current tax bill that there was a new deduction, the homestead credit. That was as a result of 2025 Senate Enrolled Act 1, where beginning in for taxes payable this year, you get a tax credit of up to 10% or $300 of your total tax bill. And that is just straight credit. You don't get to pay it. It also doesn't come in as revenue to the county and all of the other units of government that were levying those property taxes for operations. And so we have the phasing in of the homestead credit. If you own a home in the county or anywhere in the state of Indiana, and it is your primary residence, you file the forms with the auditor's office and you get the deduction, then it used to be that we had what we still do right now, we have the standard deduction up to $48,000. And then after you deduct the standard deduction, then you have the supplemental homestead deduction, and there's different percentages that you would get for that supplemental deduction. And if it was over a certain dollar amount, there's another percentage that you would get to take off. It's gone. It's changing. And so as we get through from 26 through 2031, the standard homestead deduction, it goes away. It goes 48,000 this year, then 40,000, then 30,000, then 20,000, 10, and then 0 by 2031. However, the supplemental homestead deduction, which is 40% this year, it goes to 46%, then 52%, 57, 62, and then ultimately 66.7% reduction of the taxable assessed value of the home. And so we would expect over a period of time, the actual taxable value of your home is going to go down. Now, that doesn't take into consideration, changing in assessed values, because we're talking about the taxable assessed value. So you have gross assessed value, which is the assessment. And if homes are selling for more each year, you should expect the gross assessed value is probably going to go up. But then the taxable net assessed value is what your tax bill is based on. And it's also, it's after you take the deductions, then you have the taxable assessed value. And that's what your tax bill is based on. But we can expect that over these next few years, as this deduction is being phased in, the actual taxable assessed value, it should go down. And what does that mean? Well, it's probably good for homeowners. It also, much like the homestead credit, it will ultimately you'll have less tax assessed value in the tax base where you set your tax rates, and the number one primary source of properties of revenue to the county and the cities and most of the other units are property taxes. So it'll squeeze the tax base a little bit. We also have a new tax deduction that is going in place for the 2% properties. And when I say 2%, we have three categories of property tax caps. Homesteads are subject to a 1% tax cap, meaning that if you do your tax bill after we've gone from gross to net, you calculate your tax bill, your tax bill cannot exceed 1% of the top line, the gross assessed value. If it does, then you don't pay it. That's the circuit breaker tax credit for a 1% property. The 2% property is agricultural, residential that's not your primary residence or not your homestead, multifamily properties, apartments. It's also agricultural land. And then it includes senior care facilities, and that's it. And so it used to be that the gross assessed value or the top line number of assessed value for 2% properties, it equaled the taxable net assessed value. Now we're going to start seeing a gap where this deduction, when it phases in, ultimately, when we get to 2031, it will go from a 0% deduction to a 33.4% deduction. So you're gonna lose 1/3 of the taxable assessed value of all 2% property in the entire county. That will help with tax bills. That will not help with, you know, it won't necessarily help with tax rates. And I'll kind of segue into that in a moment and differentiate between the tax rates, the tax levies, and the amount that you can actually collect, but it will not help with the tax base. We'll be losing taxable assessed value. And then there's the third primary piece, which is the 3% properties, and it's commercial, industrial, business, personal property, and anything else that is not 1% or 2%. It's generally business, businesses, operating businesses, commercial, industrial, and business personal property. Business personal property, currently, if you have a business and you have equipment primarily that costs greater than $80,000, you have to file a separate property tax return and you pay property taxes on that equipment. There's a if it's $80,000 or less, you don't have to file a return. And so it's not included in the tax base, you don't pay taxes on it. That number, beginning in 2020, for taxes payable in 2027, that exemption of 80,000 goes to 2 million. So if you have $80,001 of equipment this year, you file a return. Next year, if you have $2 million or less of equipment, you do not file a return and you do not pay taxes, but you do pass go. And so you're no longer paying property taxes on that business personal property. Good for small businesses and even some decent sized businesses as far as having $2 million of equipment. But again, it's gonna have downward pressure on the tax base because you're gonna be losing a swath of tax assessed value that's in your current tax base. It's very difficult to actually determine how much of the tax base is business personal property of $2 million or less, because the business personal property tax returns, that's private information. I can go pull up my own tax assessment for my own home in Bartholomew County, and I can see exactly what it is and how much money I'm paying. Business personal property tax returns are different because they're private, then they have more information on that. And so you can see what like the total value is, but you can't see all the stuff that you need to see to determine if it's going to be exempt in a future period or not. Okay, and so we don't exactly know, but it won't be a huge amount. It won't be a tiny insignificant amount either. It'll have some marginal effect on the tax base for next year. And we'll know what the tax base is going to be sometime in the next few months for next year. So what does this mean? It means that you have seen, let me pull up another slide right here. So this is for Jefferson County, mind you, between 2017 and 2026, the assessed value, the taxable assessed value, and this is the county's taxable assessed value. This is how you set your rates, your tax rates for property taxes. The tax base went from $1,293,000,000 in 2017 to $1,701,000,000. That's an average annual increase of approximately little over 3%. And so that in that 2026 number, you still saw a pretty reasonable increase in the assessed values. It was approximately 5%. And that was just the first step of the 2% tax deduction phasing in for apartments, agricultural, and non-homestead real estate. But that deduction keeps going and every year through 2035. And so when you have the deductions for the homesteads, they haven't really affected the assessed values of the homestead properties all that much. And tax base is a significant portion of it is homestead properties. And then the next year you will have another step up in the assessed value or the deductions for 2%. And you'll have the one-time permanent hit on the business personal property exemption going from 60 or 80 to 2 million. And so, you know, preliminarily, you know, I'm kind of expecting that the actual tax base of the county will go down. And so, probably, you know, and we're being pretty conservative here. Could it be more or could it be better? Yes. And my hope is that it is better. And my expectation that it would be a little better than this, but we could likely see a 2% decline in the tax base for next year. And then the following year, another 2%, and the following year, another 2%, and the following year, another 2%. And so, but a lot of this change, it'll be dependent upon what's happening in the community, right? So are you building more homes? Are businesses expanding? Is there, you know, is the trend in home sales as far as the cost and the sales value, is that going up? And then if it is, then you're likely to see additional growth in assessed value for residential homes as well, because the assessed value of residential homes is directly attributable to actual market sales. And if the market sells higher, then over time, you're going to see the assessed value of the homes going up as well. And so what does that mean exactly as far as kind of a degradation of the tax base? It's two pieces. It's the tax rate. So if you have a levy, that's the amount of property taxes that you're allowed to collect. The county has a maximum levy. It's a dollar amount that's fixed. And then each year you get to increase that. Between 25 and 26, the amount that you were allowed to increase it was a 4% increase. And that's based upon the maximum levy growth quotient that the state gives us. It was fixed. The legislatively fixed it at 4%. It used to be that you could go higher, or it could be that the calculations made it so that you didn't go 4%, but it was fixed at a maximum of 4% for 26. I believe it's the same for 27. So you will get a 4% increase in the amount of taxes that you're allowed to collect. So then you take the amount of taxes that you're allowed to collect, the levy, and then you divide that by the tax base, and it pops out your tax rate. And that's basically how it works. And so, does it mean you're necessarily going to collect any less property taxes? Directly, no. If your tax base goes down and the levy goes up, then your tax rate will increase. But that doesn't necessarily directly mean that you'll collect less money. Where it can cause, the tax rate's going up to some degree. So people that are not already at the tax caps will pay more out of their pocket. Or it may negate the effect of the phase-in of the deductions. So if your assessed value is going down because of the deductions, but the tax rate goes up, it may be an offsetting factor, right? And this is across, you know, probably 40,000 plus parcels across the entire county. So the other piece where it can actually decrease your revenues, decrease your revenues, is the circuit breaker. And so I was just noodling away here while I was sitting over there. But the circuit breaker, as the tax rate goes, the circuit breaker is a loss of revenue to the county and all other taxing units. It's a loss of property tax revenues. So you're allowed to have a levy, let's call it $1 million. You're allowed to levy $1 million, but you only collect what you're allowed to collect. And the difference between the two is usually circuit breaker. So if you set your rate at, or if the rate is set at an amount that would result in tax bills greater than the circuit breaker caps for any given taxpayer, then you're not allowed to collect some portion of that. So your levy is $1 million, you deduct the tax cap losses, and then that's what you get. As the rate goes up, you will have more circuit breaker losses. And so as the rate goes down, then you will collect more of the levy. Even if you were still only collecting $1 million in property tax levy on a lower, or if the levy was $1 million, on a lower tax rate, you will collect more. On a higher tax rate, you will collect less. That's because more people are exposed to the circuit breakers, even though you're trying to collect the same amount of money. And so what happens? Okay, so if the tax base degrades to some degree and you have a higher tax rate, then you will probably experience some additional losses of collectible levy due to circuit breaker. And so this is a for instance. Now this bakes in one key factor. So total countywide, all units of government that levy property taxes, the total losses in the county in 2025 were $4.570 million. And that's allocated across all the units of government. In 2026, it was $5,646,000, or an increase of $1,075,000 in 1 year. Now, most of that was actually due to the homestead credit that went into effect. It didn't exist in 25. Every homestead got a 10% tax break up to $300, and it resulted in $1,100,000 of lost taxes to the unit of government, savings to the homeowner. For the county, however, even with that, the circuit breaker losses, the amount that you couldn't collect of your levy, it went from $1,060,000 in 25 to $1,397,000 in 2026. That's still a 33% increase in the circuit breaker losses. And in circuit breaker, I'm including now the homestead credit. So you were unable to collect an additional $337,000 this year because of the changes and the way things happen. Now, the homestead credit is a one-time permanent, so you won't see that big jump due to the homestead credit being implemented next year. But you will still see fluctuations in the circuit breaker credits because of the changing tax rates and everything else. And so, pause for a second. I guess I'll pause for a minute, and that's kind of the summary of some of these things that we're keeping in the back of our mind, and there's some runway, so what will happen all the way through 2031 when all these things are implemented as far as property taxes, we don't know. But if you kind of move along, it'll be gradual, more than likely, whatever happens. And then as far as the income tax side of Senate Enrolled Act 1, that there's a hard cliff, and you are going to make a decision whether you like it or not, or it'll be forced upon you if you don't make a decision. And you won't like it being forced upon you by the state, because they're basically will strip you down to very little or nothing. And so I'll pause for a second. I can talk straight for a few minutes. Were you gonna say something?
No.
Oh, you look like you want to say something. Okay.
Okay.
I know that a lot.
Has the state come out with, has the state decided whether if we're gonna continue with the 4% maximum levy growth quotient, or we're gonna keep it at 4%, or I know it's been historically the last few years.
We still have
it's
to
been.
do the public hearing to be able to access our 4%, because that was in the 25 legislation, but I don't know if that was changed in the current
I
legislation.
believe that's correct. So yeah, as part of this also, there's new budget stuff that you get to do. And that will make Heather's job more difficult, more public meeting requirements, and not that the public meeting requirement is in and of itself like bad. It's just that the timing of actually putting notice in the paper and all of these things stack up. So it'll be more difficult to hit all these deadlines. And I do believe in order to be able to increase your levy from the prior year to the next year, you have to have a special public hearing on it, and it has to be included in your budget. And so it's a little bit more
Yeah,
drawn
at
out process.
auditors conference, I believe there is a steadfast date where we would only advertise on our political website and on DLGF maybe instead of the newspaper, because
Yes.
there, that
Yes.
kind of becoming a very hard point to get things advertised with a paper that runs.
Couple times a week, yeah. So this is imagine this kind of discussion. And then also a lot of this will be translating down into the legal requirements that you have for budgeting for next year's tax rates and levies. There's things that filter down that we could do another whole presentation on how it's going to change the budget procedures and what you need to take into consideration. But it's not just these big picture things, it's a lot of little steps and other activities that you have to do, even to just continue down the road that you have been going to keep your max levy, there's additional steps. Any other questions? I'll go to my final points for now. What do you do about it? Short term, you do what you're doing right now. You follow the rules, you follow the guidance from the Department of Local Government Finance. We're actually next week. We will have the DLGS putting out their 2026 legislative update, and I'm hoping that will give us some good guidance. They don't necessarily come out and give you opinions on how to do certain things because they don't want to take a legal stance, but they will give us good guidance on some of the impacts resulting from House Bill 1210, which modified certain things related to SEA 1 from last year. And it'll also go through a number of impacts related, maybe related to the budget, but certainly other things that are pertinent from the legislative session this year. And one thing that I tell all of my clients, which is, we know that we have a pretty good idea of how the tax assessment and deduction changes are going to affect existing properties. And so you have kind of two options, right? You just take it, or you try to encourage growth where you can. And that growth takes many forms. Encourage growth takes many forms. There are a number of programs throughout the state that you can use to encourage residential development. It's difficult, particularly, I would say, in not derogatively, but in outlying communities and like outside of the major metropolitan Indianapolis, where it's harder to get like a tract builder to come down and build 200, 300, 400 homes. It's just much more difficult to do that. And so there are a number of different programs that the state has, legal tools that you can use to encourage development, particularly for real estate developers, for residential, for multifamily, for commercial, industrial, whatever it might be. And growing your way through growing your assessed value through some of this stuff will be important, not only, now, but for the next 3, 4, 5 years, because sometimes these, particularly for a real estate development project or subdivision, it's going to take a couple of years of planning. It'll take multiple years of building homes to even get any assessed value online. Multifamily projects are generally still going to take 3 to 4 or 5 years before any tax shows up on the tax base. And then manufacturing facilities, by and large, you're going to see your biggest bang for your buck as far as if you can encourage manufacturers to come in and build large warehouses and employ folks, and if they also install large amounts of equipment. There is actually something that I neglected to talk about, which is also another piece to the SEA 1 that I already slipped my mind. I need to go back for a second. It cut me off at any point. I'll try to get quickly through the last piece. As part of the SEA 1, we talked about the business personal property and the exemption going from 80,000 to 2 million. Currently, if you look at the business personal property tax filing forms, unlike real estate, like something on the ground, improvements like that, they don't depreciate that over time, and generally will grow in value. Business personal property, when you buy the equipment, if it's $1 million, you actually only pay taxes on a portion of that. And so if it costs you $1 million, the first year you pay on 35% of it, and then it may go to 45%, then 42%, then 35%, and it goes down. So you don't pay on the purchase price. you pay on the depreciated price. And so under previous law, regardless of how far along the depreciation line you went, you never paid less. The assessed value of your business personal property was never less than 30% of the original cost, and it was called the 30% floor. We are now relieved of the 30% floor. So even those personal property tax payers, large industries in particular, and other folks that may have been at the floor, or they may own more than $2 million of equipment, they are still going to be subject to paying business personal property taxes, but now the floor has been removed. And so new equipment that either will be coming in or maybe on the books, it will actually now be able to depreciate down to a lower rung and further reduce the taxable assessed value of the business personal property. And that's just one of the things that was a part of this legislation. So you will totally exempt some business personal property, and then new business personal property that would have had a floor on it, now the floor is relieved and it will go down even further. And so, some of the things that we'll need to, consider going forward as far as the pressure on the taxable assessed value. So how do you contradict that? You can try to encourage growth, manufacturing, additional retention of jobs, investment of equipment, whatever you can do to do that. If you're anywhere in the state, you're going to be using tax abatement. You're going to be using, I believe you have maybe a redevelopment commission on the approved, but not in the county. Is that right? And so a lot of the tools that you may also want to use to encourage this sort of development would be through a redevelopment commission, but you have to establish a redevelopment commission. And I won't go, I consult with redevelopment commissions regularly, and so I understand very well how they work. And if you're looking to land a large manufacturing facility or industry that are you going to compete with River Ridge down the road? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But a lot of folks will be looking for able-bodied workers to fill manufacturing facilities. And so if you have that's a good start. They're looking for land. They're looking for whatever inputs that may be required, but they're also going to be looking for tax abatement. And they're also going to be looking for potentially other things like tax increment financing, or they're going to be looking for utility or infrastructure road work that may be to expand their facility or whatever. So
Andrew, can I interject before we get too far down the road?
yeah,
Because I have a question on the floor. How long would it take to bottom out completely? How many years do you think? Guideline or a table or anything?
There are tables. So if you look at the Form 103 long, which is the actual business personal property tax form, I believe there's definitely 5 asset pools that businesses will use. There's another 6 that's like a specialty for steel manufacturing. But on the form, there's asset pools, and it shows you the depreciation table.
Okay.
And the asset pools are based upon the useful life of the asset as determined by federal income tax guidelines. So if you file your taxes with the feds and your useful life is X, that's the depreciation schedule. And a pool 1 is like very short-lived assets, and it depreciates the fastest. A lot of stuff falls in pool 2, and just after a few years, then it's going to be at the lower end of the spectrum there. But it doesn't, just because the pool is being reduced, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go to 0, because there are actually still floors built into each asset pool. But it's significantly reduced, and some of the asset pools go down to like 5%. So if it costs, $100, when it's depreciated down, you're going to be taxed on $5,000 or $5 worth of value there. Just using small.
Which honestly is a significant difference when you're considering the commercial level and the.
Yeah. But it'll help as far as taxpayers and understanding. We're not as competitive of a state when it comes to business personal property, because some of our neighboring states don't have business personal property taxes. But I think this was kind of a one thing that they decided to do to try to make it a little bit more competitive with surrounding states, particularly for some larger projects, and give some relief to existing businesses. But
and you said this starts in 2027, right?
Yeah. That was it. I mean, encouragement of understand what your obligations will be for local income taxes, what options you have with the must task force. Timing deadlines, if you do decide to go down that road.
Mhm.
And we don't quite have all of the information available to do the calculations satisfactorily yet. And then understanding the impact of SEA one on deductions for 1%, deductions for 2%, and now the exemptions for 3% and the removal of the floor on business personal property. How that might impact overall trends in assessed value, circuit breaker tax credits going forward, tax rates going forward, and what can you do about it? You try to encourage growth in things that would generate, real wages and assessed values and anything in between. If that's the desire of, of the candidate to do, if you can, to the extent that you have any control over it,
Mhm. So you said that there are programs to encourage growth, like residential growth
Yeah,
through the state.
well, there are some, they are, there's a revolving loan fund program through the Indiana Finance Authority that has gotten some more rural, development, things done around the state. It's capped per year, and they may have already hit their cap for this year, but it should be available in ensuing periods. Some of that will require a number of things that you might want to get, whether it's ready funds or whether it's redevelopment tax credits. That is a huge thing for encouraging development, particularly in like a blighted area or if you've lost an employer. Redevelopment tax credits go a long way. It's a state program administered through the IADC for qualifying projects, but a lot of these things are going to require some sort of local match. And whether that's a tax abatement that you can quantify as your match, whether that might be a TIF match, or whether that might be actual cash that might be asked of you to put in, there's all different shapes and forms, but a lot of it will require you to do something.
Mhm.
Some of these grant applications may require it to be in an economic development area or an economic revitalization area or X, Y, or Z. But, again, that whole side of it is a whole nother conversation, but one of the things that you try to get through as we talk all these kind of like downer things relating to, assessed values and potential tax impact is that, try to encourage it through growth.
A redevelopment commission, how do you establish something like that?
One caveat. I'm not a lawyer and everything,
Okay,
nothing that I said
okay.
is constitutes legal advice.
Okay.
I'm a CPA, so I can give tax, information, but, it's a process. I would need to honestly look. I believe
Okay.
there's gonna be action from the council. There may be action required from the commissioners. And then when you establish, there'll be, then you establish the redevelopment commission and so many members are appointed by the council and so many members are appointed by the commissioners. And then they can do certain things, which is statutorily outlined, of what they can do. You have the ability to, have input through, your appointments. And certain actions.
Similar to Musk. You'll have.
Yeah, there's a liaison that you can appoint members of this body to be on the redevelopment commission, but there also can be liaisons that are non-voting members. The school corporation will get a non-voting, they would get a non-voting position on the redevelopment commission. And then if you were at that point, then you could go through and create the sort of redevelopment areas that would allow for like a TIF area to be created. But it's a whole nother process that you would go through where they'd have to adopt something, and the county council has to adopt something, and the planning commission has to adopt something, then it goes back to the redevelopment commission for another adoption. So all these things take time, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's.
Also ask a question.
At the public comment, you can.
Well, it's to him.
Oh, well, at that public comment.
He said this is about data centers and how sales tax, property tax are treated with the state where they can exempt it up to 50 years. How that would possibly benefit, and this may go into the same area that you're talking with the ERA and all of that. But that would be kind of counter to bringing business in and raising that revenue right there if it's all gonna get wiped out by the state. or by the county. So
Apologies.
that's just
All right.
where I was asking for some type of clarification with that.
I don't have any information about data centers. I haven't been asked to prepare anything about data centers. I understand that there is a lot of, conversation about that around here and other client areas that I have. I don't know anything about it other than knowing that there's talk of a data center here, there's talk of data center there, over there, but, I don't know anything about your
It
particular
would just be
situation.
the tax implications.
Sales tax implications, that doesn't directly impact.
Property
Yeah, well,
tax.
there's,
Ma'am, if you could just wait, please, and any questions, we will take those and we will roll those up and try to get answers.
it's one of the,
You're welcome.
one of the things that I do is, if you do have, some sort of manufacturer or something else that you would seriously like to entertain, then you do an impact analysis and you understand, based upon, if John Deere wanted to come down here and build a new manufacturing facility, well, you evaluate it. Well, what are they planning on spending? And what is the makeup between real property and personal property? What are the expectations that you would determine through mathematical calculations, constrained within the parameters set by the Indiana code to what you can allow and what they allow you to do? Then you determine, well, what is the impact? But with that, just saying, what is the data center impact on these taxes? I have no idea. I didn't come prepared to talk about that, nor was I asked to talk about that. I came to talk about everything.
Well, it's all
about.
hypothetical now, so we
Yeah.
don't have any real numbers.
Right. So, on that note, I'll pause for another second. If you have any more questions before I leave.
Thank you, you've been very helpful. There's a lot of good information.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go through and watch the recording.
and, for me, and I do this all the time, every day I'm talking about this stuff. Repetition, hearing it, more than once, as you continue to process and go forward into your budget timeframe. You want to understand the longer term implications, you just have to hear it more than once, more than twice, and just just take in what you can. I would encourage you to, there's the Department of Local Government Finance legislative update, I believe it's next week. I would listen to that. And then AIC is a valuable asset, and they put out information all the time. And there's so much information though that, sometimes you can be, a little bit information overload. And so take it one bite at a time. And I'm happy to, come back and.
Well, the good news is State Board of Accounts and the Department of Local Government Finance, they're starting to get their terminology within the budget 2.0 that they brought out. They're starting to have similar language, so it's not so overwhelming as far as trying to understand. And circuit breaker, to your point, it's good for taxpayers,
It is.
but
Yeah.
but it hurts us as far as what we collect.
Yeah, that's right. It's a balancing
balancing.
act, really.
It is.
Yeah. But be fortunate that, in Jefferson County, I love coming down here, by the way, but just you have a great community. It's pretty low on the totem pole as far as taxes go. And so, I think, as far as from what I see, I mean, I've done work in other communities that tax rates are pretty astonishing. And sometimes it's through no fault of their own.
Right.
When the circuit breaker laws went into effect, you're kind of locked into an area and you had no room to maneuver outside of that. So just, take it one day at a time. I encourage you to, watch some of the information that's put out by the DLGF, and I'm happy to come back and see how it's working.
I know this is off the subject, but, when is our bond? Like to pay it off early on the jail? Do you remember? 10 years.
It's 10
Was it
years. I
10?
can pull it up real quick.
Before you get incur a penalty?
Yeah, well, so those bonds, and it's not like a prepayment penalty where if you want to pay off an auto loan or a house that has prepayment
Right.
penalty, it's that you cannot pay them early.
Okay,
Yeah,
Or that.
and that is very standard. That is very standard across the municipal bond world.
Mhm.
because, you know, you're asking investors to basically receive a very low interest rate fixed for 20 years.
Mhm.
They demand, the market demands basically some sort of call protection. 2031, somewhere right around there. I just looked at the day-to-day, the closing date on the bonds was June of 2021. You pull it up actually right now, so I don't misspeak.
That sounds about right.
I've done a few other transactions since then, so, on or after July 15, 2031.
All right, thanks.
Welcome,
Thank you, Andrew.
welcome, thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Bramer here.
Yeah,
he's next.
Yep.
There he is.
Good evening.
So, there's been a request from, probably like last year sometime, about the county supporting a new ambulance farm for KVH up at their hospital campus. So we've had some discussions, we, the commissioners, and I've had some discussions with you, trying to come up with a way. We have some uncertainty in what our revenues were gonna be, and so we've talked a little bit to the hospital about having payments over a period of time. We've kind of settled on, and I'm just here to, if you agree with this, then we'll put together a proposal or an agreement. Pat, our attorney will, Pat McGrath will, and then we'll get that signed. So the kind of the proposal is $200,000 a year for 5 years. That'll end up a total of $1 million. There will be a clause in there that if for some reason ambulance service ends before that 5 period, then we get those funds back. And then it'll just be kind of a typical agreement that you'd have those clauses in that are part of that. So if you think about that, or if you want to talk about that and our agreement, we'll get Pat to put together an agreement for, I don't know, have you signed the agreement with the hospital and other ones? So I mean, it'll end up coming back to us. I'll let you see it before I sign it and send it on. But anyway, so that's what we've kind of come up with. Do it over a period of time, once again, because of uncertainty and funding and things like that that are coming in. And
yeah, we don't know what that future looks like.
yeah, I mean, we can take some estimates, but not sure until we get.
This is not new, obviously.
No, this isn't new.
For April, I think, of 2025, that's when this discussion first started. It seemed like it was a year later when the foundation representing Norton KDH was raising money for the project, was providing a lot of factual information for the commissioners and the council. Yeah, for the public to know there were tours of their current building. Obviously, this body has seen specs and mock-ups of what they're going to be offering, but also a lot of financial numbers and what that service costs Norton Healthcare, but also what the service could cost this county and the taxpayers. If at any point Norton decides not to provide that service, it would be 100% responsibility of the county. We're a little unique in that we have hospitals still providing that service. Doesn't always happen right now. Many of those are pulling back because of how expensive and costly it is. And obviously there are many counties in the state that are moving forward or have already voted to implement an EMS tax, as they had to provide. Had to find money somewhere to be able to provide the service.
So state law that the county will provide an ambulance service. We do it one way or another.
Yeah,
So. We're in agreement with that. I can get our grant, county attorney to write up a proposal.
Anybody have any
Agreement?
questions? I mean, we have been talking about it for quite a while. I know that you guys have done extensive research about having.
Once again, just kind of the unknowns, how do we approach it best way that kind of protects us, but also allows us to, doesn't strap ourselves for we don't know what our revenue is gonna be for the next several years.
And the contract that would be drawn up by, Mr. McGrath, obviously that we would see, you would see, it would, if Norton King's Daughters decides at any point during the 5-year pledge to pull and not provide ambulance services, then any contributions, not at that point moving forward, but even at year 3,
Right.
Norton obviously would have to agree to that as well,
Right.
to accept the funds, then those dollars should be returned to the county. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is advertised that I can appropriate that money, and then obviously, payment would not be submitted until that agreement is finalized and signed with both parties.
Okay. So we could vote on the appropriation tonight.
You can vote to appropriate it, and then the commissioners, can get that contract and approve that, and then once it's approved, then we would have the money ready for payment.
Okay, we'll do that when we get to the additional appropriations part of it.
Any other questions or comments or suggestions?
No.
Nope. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay, you want me to do the additional
Yes, please.
portion? Okay.
Thank you so much.
So fund number 1170, which is public safety, is where I advertised that $200,000 to go into the ambulance service for the ambulance hub, which Dave just discussed.
I'd like to entertain a motion for,
I'll motion the 200,000 for the ambulance.
get a second on that.
Six.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And I'm, need to be
Abstaining.
listed as an extension,
Abstaining,
they
okay.
are my, full-time employer.
Okay.
Um,
So Heather Boyd abstains, okay.
Okay, and then with the approval of that, then that means that all additionals have been approved. So resolution 2026-0012 in the amount of $687,067.15 would need to be approved for me to submit to DLGF.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All
Okay.
opposed?
And then one last thing, there were a couple departments that might be here for update, if you wanted to do that before,
Public comment?
public comment. Let me see.
Is
there's
one,
no-
CAC?
It was, community corrections report services.
Okay.
That.
Full delay, so choose a way.
So I didn't realize I was up, gotcha. Hi guys, nothing big. Nothing major, I just, I came last month, which was a longer meeting, so I didn't wanna bother you guys with that, but I just kind of wanted to give you some updates of what's going on in our world. So right now, we are expecting to get rollouts of those grant allotments about the last week of June, 1st of July. I think DOC has said they bring it in front of the state JRAC on June 26th. We should know what we get from them by the 29th. And then their budgets are due in the 27th, the revised budgets are due to DOC. I do know that they map on how we're interpreting it and how DOC is interpreting it is a little different. However, they were cut 11 million over the state, so we were pretty much told, I went to the spring directors conference for IACAC, which is the Community Corrections Association, and they basically told us, DOC was there and they're like, every county's getting cut. So I don't know what we will be cut. Last year we were cut $206,000. If they go by some of the old formulas, that looks to maybe be cut in half again. I'm hoping that is not the case. In saying with that, now I applied for the same programs that we have now. I also applied for probation. DOC does some small probation funding, so I, in addition, applied for that. Office of Court Services, I imagine, I can't remember the exact date last year, but it was early July when we got those allocations too. So, that hopefully
we can get with to cover our pretrial programs. We do have the Federal Justice Partners grants, and then DOC has a problem solving court grant as well. So with IOCS, we have some funding for those programs. And in light of that, so we had a guy put in his 2-week notice. So Jack worked with us. He handled our sex offender caseload and he retired. So I chose not to fill that position just yet because I don't think I expect this to get cut. So it doesn't make sense for me to put someone in there and then have to turn around and potentially.
Do you think we'll have some idea come August what those numbers are gonna look like?
Oh, absolutely.
You said June 29th,
Mhm.
29th of this month?
Yes, yes, is when we should get that allocation letter and then. I don't think IOCS, let's see, because it was the end of June when I stepped up as interim, so. I don't think we got them until I want to say after the first week of July for the other ones, but I will have. Hopefully all of those numbers. The only one I can't guarantee honestly is Justice Partners, but that is on the federal, what do I say?
I feel like we had to wait till like October of last year.
Yep, and we're still waiting on that second payment for that one as well. So, but I mean, that one at least goes through the next half of the coming year for 2027. So, but on a happier note, we have our third cohort that's set to graduate next week. So that's our female cohort. So then we, yes, and I'm really excited. I feel like we have definitely had leaps and bounds as far as outreach and participating with the community. Another thing we kind of expanded with the program was working with the prosecutor's office and the judges as well as the DA's office to kind of do encompassing services. So there were lots of people who expressed interest that weren't necessarily, maybe they already had a DOC date that they were transferring, or they had a release date that was earlier than the 3-month allotment for that program. When we looked at numbers and talked about people and interest, the overall fact of the matter is that most likely these people are going to come back into our community, whether they go to DOC or they're released. So our thoughts were, let's try to give them as much information as we can. Let's try to hook them up with enough resources, whatever we can. So we started off with a bigger cohort and we had some people, who went to DOC or some people were released early, but I do also really believe in that. I think it's a different aspect of the program that I'm not sure everybody's doing with that. And so let's give as much help to people as we can when they're coming back out.
The women are really engaged.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, our first 2 were great too. It's just the learning curve.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, so I think the plan right now is to do a second female cohort afterwards. I will double check with Jessica to make sure that's there. I am on the agenda with you guys next month too, so I can give a more broader one, but I just wanted to kind of come in and let you know how things are going. We have about 1,200, 1,300 active cases. Now, some of those are pretrial and some of those are non-reporting. We have approximately 850 to 900 that are active that we're overseeing in that. So
How many's graduating in this
3.
group?
we have 3 with this
Okay,
one.
all right.
So we want to continue funding with that. So we will be making sure that we get that reports out to you. I've been talking with Jessica just to kind of get that information out to everybody and hopefully get some more word out. So, and if there are people, refer them to email to me. We've gotten actually lots of interested people, whether that's from the community or so-and-so reached out to me. They're really interested. So I think that's kind of good that word of mouth is getting out, not just only coming from us going into the jail. We're trying to work too. We have one specific officer who's designated when those cohorts graduate. So it's kind of continuation of care. They're not spread out all over the place and she attends our JCAP meetings too. So yeah, our other programs are going really well. Yeah, so we're status quo.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for me? Not yet, right?
Good job.
Yes, thank you.
All right, that's all I have. Your phone's there. Oh, girl, thank you.
Your phone.
Have someone else?
Are there any other departments that want to update? It was department updates. Did Jason want to do an update or is he?
He left.
He left?
Yeah, well,
Okay,
yeah.
so.
All
I
right,
think
so we'll
probably
go on to public comment.
good.
I guess we're just gonna let them come in as they,
I do not have a sign-in list.
Okay.
I have been telling people that we are sticking to the
Okay.
3 minute.
all right, well,
And if you want me to give you a thumbs up when we hit 3, I can do that.
okay. State your name and address, please.
My name is Frida Cheney, 796 East State Route 250, Madison, Indiana. Good to see all of you.
Good to see you.
I don't know all of your names. I'm glad to offer you my information, and I want to read a letter tonight because I live directly across the street from the Big Oaks National Wildlife Refuge. I own approximately 11 acres on which there is a 4-acre lake, pristine lake. I'm treating it, I'm caring for the wildlife in my area. I see eagles flying over from the wildlife. I'm not gonna do a Tammy Faye, I promise. I watch the wildlife in my area coming across from the wildlife refuge. I just moved there last year in June. And I moved from Ohio where there was a similar situation. When it was Intel coming in. I owned a historical home. And they put a big development across the street from the historical home. Now the historical home is in trouble. So I moved here to Madison. It was my dream with my late husband. We came here in the 90s and we wanted to visit the little homestead of Harlan and Anna Hubbard. And my husband and I were both authors. We put a book together, took it up to Hanover College, hoping to get it in the college, in the library. And I can't imagine that this has happened to me again 1 year after moving to Madison, the place of my dream. Can't imagine my home being taken away from me. And I don't mean, I may sell. I may have to sell it because I'm in poor health anyway. And I can't be somewhere where there's a lot of noise and pollution and what have you. I thought I had the perfect hidden space there. I thought it was just perfect, the wildlife area, JPG, and on the other side on 250, that beautiful ravine going down into Canaan. I thought I had it made with my 11 acres and my beautiful lake, which I call Little Walden after Henry David Thoreau's Walden. And I had a letter to read, but I'm not going to make it in 30 minutes. I will just tell you, I will send you a copy of this. Since I am an author, I'm writing a book. I started writing it last year about my area and Madison and how much I love it. And how blessed I am to be up on 250, away from everything, and still have the opportunity to go down the hill into Madison. And I have to say that I'm disappointed that the data center is even being considered, let alone approved. I just can't even put my finger on why. But I am continuing to write my book. And unfortunately, it may not end well. And I may be consulting with all of you for information eventually to get the book published. I've got about 7 or 8 books out there on the market now. My husband published one with Harlan and Anna Hubbard in it just before he passed. I would implore you to slow down, take it easy, just think this thing over, just pause, take the time. And think about the people you are going to displace. Because not all of them gotta leave, but a lot of them will. Maybe they'll get bought out, I don't know. I hate to see my 4-acre lake go down the hill. All my fish, it's stocked with fish, turtles, crawdads, you name it. Everything that's over in the wildlife area is over in my area. I have farmers all around me. My farmers deserve to have a decent life there too. They've been there all their lives. 3 minutes up?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Uh,
I would invite you, I'd like to invite all of you out to my farm. It's the old Jessup Farm. It's the
Mhm.
first farm.
We're neighbors.
Hmm?
I just live a little north of you, 300 acres. Yeah.
Well, you know my property then.
Mhm. My
And-
husband used to hunt there.
Yes, yes. So I would like to invite every one of you there, and if you want to come out and fish, bring a pole. My lake needs fishing.
I need fishing.
And I'm new to the area and I need friends and I need people to interact with, especially regarding this data center. And I want to be fair to everybody, but I need to write this book. I need to finish this book and I hope it ends well for all of us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Like him.
Well, you remembered my name. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't need your timer. I got my own. You should probably keep your timer going because he goes off after. Hey, I come bearing gifts. But before I get there, I have 3 points I want to make. Congratulations to Heather. Your job's about to get more difficult. I don't know if you knew that when you came into work today.
I did.
Okay, great. Two, I would like us all to take a second to appreciate the irony of something being called must and yet it being optional. Just stop and think about that for a second. And third, I wanted to applaud the council for appointing Nick Ellis. I cannot imagine a better person for the county parks board. Just a hell of a guy. So here's my gift. I am not gonna talk to you about data centers or AI or anything. Do you believe that? Okay,
No.
here we go. I have a procedural question because I'm trying to learn. Previously, the vote for the ERA had been pushed to tonight. And then, like 72 hours later, had been, a special session had been called. And then, I think a day or two later, the vote occurred. Now, a distressingly long time ago, I was in high school and I took a civics course where they taught us about Robert's rules. And I'm just curious if we're following Robert's rules or if there's another rule of order set that we're adhering to here. And if we could, I want to understand procedurally how that happened and why that was allowed, because as far as I remember from the years ago.
So I can answer.
Please do.
So there are provisions in the Indiana code that allows that the Indiana or the county auditor could actually call a meeting. And or a majority of the council members could reach out to me and then I could call the meeting on behalf of the majority of the council members, which is what occurred that evening.
Okay, I see. And that allows for the vote to occur at that time
Mhm.
without public comment?
Right, because we had a public hearing and at the end of the meeting, I asked specifically, Mr. May, if that closes all public comment. And at that moment, it closed all public comment. And if you look back at the video, he agreed that there would not be any additional comment.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Then I'll get out of here for the night. I'll leave you with this. I taught my daughter to appreciate sushi. It is honestly the worst financial decision that.
Okay, but since she was meeting, you better
She
be,
earned it.
you better be paying us.
This
I'll
guy,
take you to sushi.
that guy gave us a summary. You hear what I'm saying? This is the end of my summary.
I
Can
just
you imagine the
went through
detailed
a
report?
week of it,
Oh my God.
so.
Let's get out of here, kid. Thanks, everybody.
Go get
Thank you, Elijah.
sushi. Let's go make sushi. I got some salmon at home.
And I want to be clear, the
Mhm.
reason why that we finished that is because there was nobody else. Everybody had spoken.
Right, at that moment,
We allowed everyone to speak, so.
I had a sign up list, we did everyone in order and everyone was receiving their 3 minutes. That signed up.
Okay, is anybody else? Next,
Next, you wanna ask the overflow?
Yeah.
Thanks, Tricia.
thank you, Tricia.
Delays.
Yeah,
It's a pretty good size.
It's yes, very, it's frustrating.
Let me see.
Make it so.
There you go.
Nope, there's no one in there that wants to speak.
I'll go ahead and speak.
Sure.
My name is Steve Bronner. I'm from, Deputy, Indiana. I've been awfully concerned about these data centers as a lot of other people are, and our concerns are valid. Now, that we may not know very much, and I did see like one of y'all abstain from a vote last week because y'all are rushing this. We don't know enough about it, but we're starting to know enough about it. If you look down in Georgia, where they have undrinkable water, you can look up north in Maine, where they also have undrinkable water. We're seeing bad things come out of this, and you're selling our soul to like Elon Musk and, Mark Zuckerberg, stuff like that, when you could do a lot of other things there. So I would just like to say that, we could do the example of like Festus, Missouri, where there was a data center coming in. Citizens didn't really want it, so they voted everybody out. And we could do that. So I think we ought to do that. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
And I'll just rebuttal to Mrs. Cheney and Mr. Bronner that were just here, because Elijah didn't have a lot, but I think we tend to forget the role of the council. Our role is fiscal arm of the governing body of Jefferson County. So over 25 years ago, when JPG sold south of the firing line, that property, it was already zoned heavy industrial. That goes through the zoning, that goes, it does not touch council ever to make decisions on ordinances. So therefore, we don't have anything to do. We could, the majority of us can hate solar, we could hate data centers, we could hate new businesses coming into the county. We have no say whether businesses
Okay,
come.
but, well, I heard one of you all say that you were happy to let one of the horses out of the barn on this, right?
But
Yeah,
part of,
that was the
that was
ERA.
all the financial part of it.
We didn't
Yeah,
vote for the
so-
data center. When Ray abstained, he was abstaining from our ERA distinction vote. This body did not
So who
vote
takes
for or against
responsibility?
the data center.
Who takes responsibility?
It was originally zoned, over 25 years ago as heavy industrial.
Okay,
So
but
at
you
that
have to-
time, 28 years ago or 25 years ago, if there was an ordinance that said, we will not, in a heavy industrial area, we are not going to allow data centers, dumps.
We didn't have
chemical
hyperscale
plants.
data centers.
No, we didn't, but we have not changed that since then.
And we need to.
Well, you can't change the ordinance once after it's already been submitted. I don't sit on zoning and I don't know the legalities. But we, as council, cannot change that. And I'm just trying to be the fiscal part, fiscally smart, that puts and leverages the county to have discussion if a business comes in.
Creating the ERA means that you could start a business out in that same area. Anybody could start a business in that. That's all that we did as a council, was create that economic reinvestment area so that any business could come in and locate out there and.
But it didn't give a business the permission to move in.
Yes.
They already have that
Yeah.
permission, such as if I want to sell, which I do, I would love to move to Wyoming. And we would love to sell our 250 acres, but we're limited because we're residential and it's not agriculturally listed. So we're limited to the people that we could sell it. Now, if we wanted to change the ordinance where we live across from we're gonna have to go through a lot, we'd probably be shot down because it's in a neighborhood. That was already zoned heavy industrial. So if anybody applied for a permit, then, and it all passed the check boxes that they look at, then we need to be in place and have the ability to say, okay, if XYZ business is moving in, then we want the county to financially have a gain, be a good leverage. We just don't want somebody to move in and then us just say, hey, great neighbor. We hope you pay taxes, but if you're a really, really large company, maybe we should have something in place where we can negotiate for 10 years and maybe have a little bit better parameters on what we do with those revenues received. Did I explain that okay? But as
But
far as the
ultimately,
council,
it's the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Right.
That they will see the building permits whenever
Mhm.
that's approved by their administrator. So there's been a lot of misinformation to that the council is voting on this or the commissioners are voting on this. And that's not the case. The Board of Zoning Appeals is the one that was voting on this, but the commissioners did approve their unified ordinance.
Yeah.
Which
recommendation.
that's online and it's the recommendation and that was recently redone. That did all of the setbacks. I've sat through multiple of the meetings, through commissioner meetings. And the public just didn't really have a lot of input at that time.
The commissioner
because it wasn't on our radar.
is what we need to be focusing on, is what I'm hearing. I
No,
know.
the plan commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals.
They're the final say on what gets built out there is the zoning board and stuff.
Within any
Yeah,
heavy industrial or light industrial, they have say, like,
So they're the ones that made the exception to include the hyperscale data center in their definition.
there was no exception made
Exception, they said.
because there was no.
Oh, they decided it fit there, okay.
Yeah, because it has to fit the legal definition of a heavy industrial. And it fit within that
But
parameter.
they really didn't. But.
Well, we didn't have, it's all legal. You know,
Yeah, there was a
you have
lawyer
to
there that
be-
made a really good
Right,
point, and.
Right, you can have general, like if I wanted to zone my property as a light industrial, that's just general. Is there any specific of what can be or what cannot be built in each one of those zones?
Is there any indication of what to do with wastewater that you cannot do anything with, you cannot treat? Where does that go? Is there anybody that's gonna be watching
Sure.
that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
The IDEM, they will watch it heavily, and then you also have the EPA. So both of those bodies will be watching, I would imagine, and this is totally out of my ballpark, because we just do numbers. But I've done some side myself, my sister is electric broker for AES out of Indianapolis. And the water doesn't concern me at all, because I have a geothermal. But I will tell you that I have concerns about the electric, but they are
There's
working with
about that
Duke,
too.
yeah. So we are not set up for that, so things will have to change. So,
Well, so,
yeah,
I mean, in all this discussion, the only thing that has happened has been that the Board of Zoning Appeals agreed with the zoning administrator's determination that a
Right.
data center fits in a heavy industrial
Mhm.
zone. And people are like, well, why don't you know about the water? Well, when they submit their building application permit, it will have all that that information in there. The county will take that, have an engineering firm evaluate it, look at what the water requirements are, what the electricity requirements are. And that's when those things will have to be fleshed out.
Mhm.
I mean, people are like, well, why don't you know? Well, they haven't done any design work because they didn't know it was gonna be able to be built there.
Mhm.
I mean, no one has on the shelf a ready to go design to just plop down
because
wherever.
it's all hypothetical at this point,
Well, no, I mean, so
and in a
once
certain
again,
degree.
well, once again, the decision that was made was that a data center fits into a heavy industrial zone. That's it,
Mhm.
because it is similar enough to all those things. I mean, a chemical plant could go out there and you know what? It would go the same way. They would submit an application. The zoning administrator, what would he say then? Yeah, it's listed, so it would be approved.
Mhm.
But once again, I'm afraid people think that now our hands are off and we don't do anything. No, it's just started.
Mhm.
Their building permit application will have to have these details and we'll have to have someone smarter than us to evaluate it and to review it. Because there is a fee when you submit the building application for that purpose, that you hire a consulting firm to do that review. So.
Mhm.
The state is not entirely divorced from some oversight. They
Well,
have some legal,
IDEM, and they have, the state will have, since it's the, I mean.
yeah, there's gonna be a lot
the
of
buildings of it, they have to go through state approval for those,
and their finger in it,
so,
and oversight.
right, so.
But as far as the economic revitalization area, that's all we voted for. And I made the comment about that horse has been pent up too long, and I stand by that. That area, you don't wait until developers come and then designate an area in ERA. That's backwards. You designate an area in ERA so that you can attract developers.
We've
So-
already got one.
We already got one, but that's the exception to the rule. The rule is they're not gonna come around unless you have an ERA. And over half of that property still needs to be developed. So we either designated an ERA or we say we're closed for business. We don't want to develop out there. We don't want any manufacturing, you don't want any assembly plants. Well, I don't agree with that. I think I want development out there. But we don't choose what the development is. We just say whether it's a designated an ERA or not. But this idea of wait until you have someone sniffing around and then designated an ERA, that's backwards. You say we're open for business out there, and it helps us economically. And so we've stated that as many ways we've hit it as many perspectives as I know how to say it. As far as property taxes and economic development agreements and all those things that come along with projects like this that will help us. As the gentleman talked about tonight, we're gonna be struggling. And I don't wanna be the council, I don't wanna sit on a council that says, let's have an EMS tax. Let's have a library tax. Let's have this tax. Have that tax. When we've got another option. And as far as the data center, all of us have concerns about it. We're gonna be with our fellow constituents and citizens, voicing our concerns to us state leaders about utility bills and other things. But the ERA is completely separate from that. That just said, hey, we're out there, we want to develop that area. And that was really just the long and the short. It was something we should have done years ago. It's something we should have done 20 years ago.
I agree, because it probably wouldn't be a hyperscale data center at that point.
Well, it still could have been, sure. It's zoned for that. They could have come in.
Do you want
Yeah,
to
I'm
speak?
going to speak for, I live in Nab. So I just would like to,
You want to go up there?
it was just it's a short comment, just, briefly, just because you said, I don't think anybody disagrees that an ERA, possibly before the development project was, submitted, that would be a great idea, but you just said over half of it's undeveloped, but really it's only 20%.
No, it's about 70% actually.
Actually, it's not. If you actually do the numbers, I have the breakdown right here. It's 20%. 15% is already tax exempt and 65% is the data center.
Yeah.
So
That's bad information. I've got updated information. I'll get that for you.
I would love that.
It's about 71% of that is still left to be developed.
Not including what was in the application for the data center. I would love to see that.
What you see is 35. It's actually double that.
What I see is 20% that is undeveloped out of the parcels that were in the ERA.
Yeah.
Taken from what you guys submitted as on the document of the ERA with what is in the application for the data center.
Over half of it's still left to be developed, and an ERA will help draw developers to that area.
I have to disagree with.
And
those
so
numbers.
what's the point?
I don't know.
Maybe y'all can pave over Big Oaks while you're at it too, you know.
I think that is the military's property. I don't think they have any.
Reservation for, because of all the. All right, it'll-
Nobody up here that wants to see Big Oaks close. Everyone, we are reaching out to state decision makers and listening and speaking a voice as well. None of us want to see that happen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nor well, obviously, I'm a voice just like you could be a voice and contact someone from the state. We certainly are not making a decision on that and won't have a chance to, but I can tell you, nobody up here wants that to close.
Federal's probably a better place to go. with
Yes.
that.
Yes,
Department of Interior.
Yeah, because the state guys would go, whatever.
yeah.
Part of the army too.
Yes.
It's gonna be a federal reservation of some sort, whether it's army or, part of the interior, it will never be
I'll get you
brought
the-
back
I would
to
love
a
to see it.
public.
And I know the document you're referring to, that is not correct. And I'll get you the
I would love
update.
to see it because I made this document. I took the time and the hours to go through every single parcel, every single number and put it on this document.
Well, we
So I would
we all
love
make
to see-
mistakes, so.
Well, I would love to see it.
We all make mistakes. I do it all the time. Does anybody else have any more comments? Do you want to say something, Mr. Sanders? Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. The second,
From Vince.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.